To welcome everyone to the Managing Your Finances webinar. This is a presentation of the New York State and CSEA Partnership for Education and Training. Again, and I'll be your host for the webinar, and our facilitator today is Mike Willis. And I'm going to mute everyone's phones to keep background noise to a minimum. If you have questions at any time, you can click on the Raise Hand button at the bottom of the participants panel. It's on of a hand in the air. Once on, right-click on your name in the panel and choose Unmute to speak your phone or a microphone attached to your computer. Please raising your hand now using the Raise Hand button. It's by that green check mark in the center. Give a quick count of how many people have their hand up. Excellent. And again, would put your hand back down. Thank you for that. Also, type any questions or comments you have at any time during the webinar in that chat box that we've been using. Again, it's at the bottom right-hand side of the screen, and please make sure all participants is sent to drop down. Previously, today's webinar is sponsored by the New York State and CSEA Partnership for Education and Training, or as many people call it, simply the partnership. You're wondering, what is the partnership exactly? Well, for those of you who aren't familiar with us, the partnership is an organization that administers education and training programs for CSEA represented employees through management cooperation, funded through negotiated agreements between New York State and CSEA. Person classroom training, online learning, additional advisement services, grants and benefits, labor management services, and education and training programs, including this webinar you're attending today. The partnership is a joint labor management organization whose mission is to promote career mobility, job skills, support work safety and health, and encourage effective labor management relations. You can learn about us on our website or by calling us directly. And we'll put information again at the end of the webinar. So, a bit more about the partnership. We can get started. I'm going the webinar over to your instructor, Mike Willis.
Thanks. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Managing Your Finances webinar. How's everybody doing today? Really glad that you could all join us. Managing Finances is one of two webinars on how to work with your finances. In the webinar, we'll teach you how to manage your personal finances. There is also a companion webinar that you can take called Using Credit Wisely. In that webinar, we talk about how to best use and maybe even repair your credit. If that webinar sounds good to you, you may want to register for that too at some point, or view archived recording of this webinar by going to the partnership's webpage and clicking on Career Resources. So let's start by talking about managing your finances. 3 goals for today's session. First, we want to get you to start to think about your main financial goals. Second, we want to give some strategies for setting up a budget. And third, we want to discuss some ways to reduce debt. As the webinar is designed to give you some tools and strategies for managing your personal finances. Please any questions you have as we go along by clicking on the Raise Hand button at the bottom of the participants panel, or by typing them into the chat box. Time at the end of the webinar to answer any other questions that you may have. We have a quick disclaimer for you, though. We'll be glad to provide you with the tools, knowledge, and resources to make budgeting easier for you today. However, neither I nor the partnership offers financial planning services. First of all, I'd like to ask yourself, so why did I decide to take the Managing Your Finances webinar? Or maybe what do you hope to learn about today? Matt?
Yes, please type your answers to these questions in the chat box. Again, why to take this webinar, or what knowledge might you hope to learn from it today? And we'll give this because sometimes there is a lag on the chat. To get better at my finances, says Nicole. get could mean tracking it, possibly. Manage debt, manage student debt, keep the budget, develop it, refinance, and do it the right way and improve my credit score. All answers.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
With you, what my personal goal is for today, that is to simply provide you with the practical information on personal finances that you can use. The expression, I just don't know where all the time goes. Well, you also have heard the similar expression, I just don't know where all my money goes. Whenever I hear that, my first thought is, well, you should know. You were there. You were the one who spent it. So improving your financial situation is to be really proactive and involved with your finances. It's where you spend your money. One way is to create financial big picture for yourself is to create your top 3 financial goals, whether they're short or long-term goals, or maybe a mix of both. So what's between short and long-term goals? Short goals are generally those that you can achieve within a few months. Take and think of what you'd consider to be a short-term financial goal.
Share one of your personal short-term financial goals. Please click on the raise hand button, and then we'll, or you could type it in the chat box as well. Financial goals. Paying credit card, saving for a security deposit, and start a vacation fund.
Pretty good examples of short-term goals. Long-term financial goals, they can take a year or more to achieve. Examples of what comes to mind when you think of long-term financial goals. In your hand, if you want to share one of your own personal long-term goals.
Put in the chat box as well. And we've retirement window, save for a house, pay off mortgage, save for the mortgage, pay off credit card debt, save.
Yes.
Perfect.
Whatever goals you have, there are a few basic steps you can take to get there. We'll talk about those in a minute. Start with short-term goals because you have to see it come about more quickly. So, for example, you buy or you see the balance go down on your credit cards, or you take vacation. Goals with a short-term reward. With long goals, there isn't much in the way of instant gratification. And it takes years to actually see the result. Every instant gratification part. That's also where we sometimes get ourselves into trouble financially. American culture strongly emphasizes having the biggest, the newest, and the best. Worries about owning huge houses, but having the furniture inside because they just can't afford it. An hour is over, and you have some time. I want you to answer this question. What did I exercise set in achieving my personal financial goals? So let's talk about 3 tips to help you reach your financial goals. First, pay yourself first. Even if it's a small amount, you should set aside some money for savings. It adds up over time. For example, if we spent $100 a month for 5 years, not including any interest we might have earned, we would save $6,000. And you put it in the bank and you just don't touch it. Second, less than you earn. Pretty good. If a $1,000 paycheck and you spend $1,200, you're going to find yourself in financial trouble and with lower credit rating. Budget and stick to it, and we'll discuss that in a minute. You'll see in achieving your short-term and long-term financial goals. And then third, use credit wisely. Credit and loans can be valuable tools, but they're saying just because you can, should you? And it is needs versus wants. There's great stuff to buy, but do you really need it? So this is back to the question I asked you earlier, what to achieve with your money.
Dean asked if you could repeat that first example, the state numbers.
Sure. If you just saved $100 a month for 5 years, you would have saved a total of $6,000, and that doesn't include any interest you've earned.
Wow. $3 a day, roughly.
Yes. And if you calculate interest at even percent,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of high for a savings account today, but for a certificate of deposit, probably have about $6,300 at the end of that 5-year period. So you would have earned about $300 in interest.
All right, thank you.
So the short and long-term goals we mentioned earlier, here are examples of them and why planning your finances is important. Maybe a car or a vacation, some of you mentioned. Maybe save for retirement or save for an education. So, and what's that in the middle? Well, it's a credit card. If what's on this slide, you can see that it shows many of the things that we want to achieve over our lifetime. Get your set, then follow it, and then guard your credit. If you use it the wrong way, you'll get a lower credit rating, and a lower credit rating or credit score makes it very difficult to get the best interest rates. In instances, it can prevent you from making a large purchase or even renting an apartment or getting a job. That credit can be repaired. If you want to learn more about this, for our companion webinar, Using Credit Wisely, where we spend that time discussing all the things credit related. Right, so let's talk about setting up your budget. But before we begin our discussion of setting up a personal budget, I'll stop at this point and ask everyone a question. What describes you? Do you don't bother with a budget? Or have a budget, but I don't really follow it? Or C, I have a budget and I stick to it. So, Matt?
Notice that I've opened the polling panel on the right-hand side of the screen. Over there, your mouse and click on the circle next to the option that best describes you, and click the Submit button, which describes your current budget. Wait till one or most have responded, and then I can display the results with everyone here. Okay, just a few seconds. The web server. And they have a budget, but they don't really follow it. 6, they bother with a budget, and 2, they have a budget and stick to it.
Well, this is a trick question, but something tricky about how you answer. Good financial health is to be absolutely honest with yourself about what you do with your money. If you buy a $10 lunch every day at work and you work 5 days a week, then put that $200 a month for spending on lunches on your sheet. If you're not sure what you're spending, track your expenses for a month. It really can be an eye-opener. The keys to developing a budget that will work is to put in actual figures. Be honest with yourself about how much you're spending. Your money really is going. Paper is a great visual aid. And you have to say, I never know where my money goes.
You will quickly see where it does go.
Yep.
Before we move on, please note that the poll panel may have collapsed participants in that panel. If to reopen those and see them, you simply click the little arrow next to those.
Before developing a budget, it helps to know there are two kinds of expenses, fixed and flexible. So what's it? Fixed ones that don't change every month. Make examples of what you think of as fixed expense. Ideas in the chat box.
Please provide with your ideas on a fixed expense in your budget. And Crystal will get to your question in just a moment. We've got rent payment, mortgage, groceries,
Yep.
expenses that we see, and they repeat.
They repeat.
Car insurance, taxes, phone, etc.
All right.
Thank
you. Then flexible expenses change depending on needs and wants. Well, this time I'd like you to give us some examples of a flexible expense. Again, type your ideas in the chat box.
Flexible. Entertainment, clothes, things.
Yep. Again, good examples.
Yes, I think they know where we stick versus flexible.
There was a question?
There was, related to budgeting. Let me go find for you. In that, I do it and I stick to it. However, I find that most of the time my expenses outweigh my income that's due mostly to credit card payments due.
Well, you develop a budget, you need to factor in your credit card payments. Because it is at least for some period of time, it's going to become a fixed expense.
Mm-hmm.
And take that into account. If you still exceed income, you really need to go back and look at your and see how you can really work with a balanced budget.
Okay. An example of a budget today, right?
We certainly will.
Okay.
So, the rule of thumb that you can follow: your housing and revolving debt or your credit cards should be more than 30% of your budget. Income taxes and insurance costs can take up another 29%. And in an ideal budget, you'll also be saving 15% of your pay. That leaves about 26% for your expenses, and that's everything else. So, Vaughn, does anyone have any questions about this? That'd be a tough budget to live within.
Yes, the rule of thumb budget.
Yep.
That was, what were those, please?
30% of your budget should be taken up by your housing and revolving credit. That's it.
Okay.
Income taxes and insurance costs could take up another 29%, 30%.
Mm-hmm.
And your ideal budget, you'll be saving 15%, and that leaves you about 25% for your everything else, for your living expenses.
For living expenses.
For your flexibles, basically.
Our question was, what was the 30, and we did cover that again.
Yeah.
So we're continuing.
Okay. So in a moment, I'll show you an example of a worksheet that will illustrate how to set up a budget. When you create your own budget, use something else if you like. You can buy a lined ledger book for your budget, or you can make your own worksheet on paper, or even download one from the net. The website has several templates designed for use with Microsoft Excel. And I'm sure if you Googled it, you would find a variety of other templates that you can tout as well.
Find one you like to work with, and
absolutely,
we'll be honest.
And continue using.
Yes.
So there's a lot of different ways you can approach this. In fact, my assignment for you today will be to select a budget template and to start to fill it in. Homework. Here's our example worksheet. To start saying that your budget doesn't need to be complicated, but it needs to be comprehensive and filled in accurately. First, how many times a month you get paid, and if your gross wages are, that is, before taxes and all other deductions are taken out of your pay. is your net pay. Information on your pay stub. Here on our budget slide, you'll see first what we call fixed expenses. Those are the ones that you must pay every month, and you're in the same amount from month to month. And if other sources of income, a spouse or partner's income, rental properties, income from a part-time job, or driving an Uber or a Lyft, include that additional income. First, in the left-hand column, we have our income. This would be net pay. Remember, what you get paid after taxes, retirement, health and life insurance, and so on are taken out of your paycheck. That's $2,500. In the column, we have expenses. And we're looking at only our fixed expenses. Use it with your fixed expenses in detail. Next to the payments column, which shows the monthly amount paid for that item. Our balance can be used in different ways. The amount how much you have remaining to be paid, we can set it up the way we have it here, with the amount remaining from your net pay after our payment made. Note on the right. Here, additional information or notes to yourself. So for example, I put out to myself to look for the best deal on insurance and cable costs. So put down $1,000 for housing costs. Do you think for rent or mortgage with taxes is reasonable? What do you think? Tell me what the rate for housing is in your area, and please use the chat box on the left side of your screen if you'd like to share your thoughts on this. We know quite a bit of difference among areas of the state.
Type in your opinion whether a $1,000 expense for rent or mortgage payment is common in your area. When it is approximately $1,000. Colleen.
Okay.
Seems to be here as well.
Mm-hmm. Guess it's the city.
There you go. In Long Island, you can barely get a studio for that.
There you go.
That's a. But if you were to take maybe a New York State average, our 1,000 is
not unreal. Okay. So before we move on, does anybody have any questions about this part of the budget?
Are there on our page 1 fixed expenses? I'll let them raise hands. They're on. As I think of something in a little bit, feel free to type it in the chat. We can always come back.
All right. So on our screen, you can see an example of a person's flexible expenses. And fixed and flexible expenses would probably be on the same page, but we split it up to make it easier for you to read budget on the slides. If you remember, your flex expenses are those things that change from month to month and week to week. That place to start to find some wiggle room to free up more funds each month. It goes out just with expenses. It can give an incentive to figure out where in your flexible expenses you get some money. Before that, though, you really need to have an accurate idea of what you're really spending. You actually tracked all of your daily expenses. So, question for you. Have any of you ever tracked your day-to-day spending at any time in the recent past? Yeah, raise your hand.
Raise hand button to indicate to us if you've tracked your spending in the recent past. And that's spent.
For a cup of coffee on the work.
What? Coffee counts?
Coffee counts? So is that?
I have 4 hands and comments about no. And so I'm afraid to see how much they spend on some things. So the no. Oh, look. Janie coffee every morning.
That's one.
That
You who have tracked your spending, I'm impressed. It seems that the majority of you haven't, though. If you haven't done this, you can start today. And this budget only leaves you about $315 to cover your savings, clothing, entertainment, and we might refer to as incidentals, which are unexpected and often unpleasant surprises. So the question is, what happened to all my money? Living check to paycheck is pretty common for both singles and families today. In this economy with rising costs, it seems this has become the new norm. So how do you put some money away and still pay your bills without losing your mind? The only way to do this is to go back over your budget and see where you can cut some things out. To do is to look at your fixed expenses.
Question, should incidentals be different than savings?
Remember we said earlier to pay yourself first.
Uh-huh.
Try to save that 5, 10, 15, or even 20%. So I know it's really, really hard. The first thing you should try to do. And go when you are pushing limits of your budget also.
Okay, so dedicated savings row from any incidentals that
we do.
Emergencies.
We do.
Okay.
And you try to build it into your budget just like you build your rent payment into your budget. It becomes a fixed expense for you.
Okay. Do you have any way to consolidate credit cards?
They can offer is to contact the Consumer Credit Counseling Service, which I believe is and talk about the best strategy for dealing with debt. And we address that in the Use Credit Wisely webinar.
Okay. I'll just put here in the chat so people can go back to that. Okay.
So, take a look at the budget. Is there anything that you can see that we could change in our fixed expenses?
Share an idea. I save money when on fixed expenses. Please let us know via the chat panel. I think we give a few away, but
yep.
there you go. Companies would shop for better rates on insurance or cell plans, looking for a better deal on a lot of these things.
Yep. Nobody there rent or mortgage.
And looking at that as the bank or lord won't deliver on that.
No,
What do you think?
Well, sometimes into a less expensive house situation is a big difference.
That's right.
So you can look at moving or selling your current car and buying a cheaper one. It's not always, but it is something that can be done. One can do is review any of your insurance policies and maybe bundle them to, if you put your car and homeowner's insurance together, you might get a better insurance rate. Are you getting the best deal? And when it's time you shopped around?
That's right. A habit of just paying bill every month.
We do. And the insurance companies are very competitive, but just the premiums that you're going to be paying for the insurance, but also the extent of the coverage. What do you are you really getting what you need from your cell phone? If you really text, even if it's a lot, then there may be a cheaper plan and an opportunity to save money there. Have your best credit card interest rates. because me as well. Cable. Do you really want 80 or more channels? Or cable and use one of the streaming services that might be less expensive.
Mm-hmm.
We can get rid of cable and streaming services entirely and just as an HD antenna. There are, in my area, we have about 20 channels that are over the air.
Oh, wow.
Local channels, all the PBS channels
Mm-hmm.
are just available over the air, and they're for free. So, save maybe $100 a month.
Yeah, get creative, right?
Yep.
So we've got, he says, go green. Sure, if you live close enough to work, I guess bike is definitely an option.
Yep.
Straight talk cellular. Still has just internet, and the price is still ridiculous. So maybe she should shop around on that.
Yep.
SHD antenna.
You know, I think they're all pretty much the same.
Okay.
We just go to Best Buy or Walmart where they sell them and shop around. And it's there because I probably know more than I found. Even without an HD antenna, my TVs still pick up the HD signal.
Yeah.
So big opportunity to save $75 to $2 a month, depending on what your package might be.
For car insurance, and reduced it by a percentage.
Safe driver.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
There's green light if that's available in your neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah, and definitely looking at the numbers in front of us, you can numbers with some of these ideas.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about flexible spending next. You can really make some spendings and save some money. Let's face it, it's great to stop for coffee or go out to dinner or catch a movie. Don't tame your flexible spending. That tiger will really bite you. So let's our budget again. We can trim. $315 left to cover savings, which I think should be part of your fixed expenses, clothing, entertainment, and all those incidentals that can go anywhere from dry cleaning to car repairs. So many opportunities here.
To save us money here, please type it in the chat box.
And then just using coupons to reduce your food costs. I wonder if anybody uses them and how much they think they're saving as a consequence.
If you have snow, you can reduce driving trips, thrift stores for clothing, cars save on gas, that to work, make food for use your leftovers, for that, and automate your clothing purchases. Free, and there is a lot of times in near these, there's a lot of friends, even if you're in the country, state.
Yep. Canada's too.
Absolutely. So you use coupons, but hasn't in a while. Felt like didn't have time, but I should make the time to save money. Yeah, but when not coupons that you have to clip now, which is nice. A lot of the apps will do you.
Yes.
Which makes it much more convenient. But I have seen coupon savings myself if you do take the time to, just on things you're going to buy. And forget the coupons at home when you leave to the store. That's not just you, Janie. All right. What do you think, Mike?
I think great idea. So how can you save? What do I need for clothing? Can I sales? Can entertainment? And what do you count as an incidental expense? Because take a look at that, there may be opportunities to save. Are you dry cleaning? Maybe you don't need that. Stop the sales, and so on. Other ideas, we can move on.
I think we've covered a lot.
All right, really great ideas. So here's a recap. Your budget is a reality check of where your money is going. And that's a reflection of your personal values. What to you? So ask yourself some questions. Are you a spender or a saver? Are you pay your monthly bills? Do you short and long-term financial goals, and are they realistic? The budget is a tough one. But in this economy, tough choices seem to be the new normal. Vigilant about what we spend weekly and monthly. We also need to reevaluate short and long-term financial goals every few months. Setting up a personal budget may not be anyone's definition of fun, but it's a great tool for staying on top of expenses and planning for your future. Your budget is a living document. You can and should adjust it, and your goals, based on, and your load. And finally, I've also an assignment for you. I find a budget template that you'd feel comfortable using. Microsoft Excel has a budget template. If you're a computer and want to use a spreadsheet, it's that way because Excel recalculates your budget when you make a change to it. So it makes that simple. If you found a budget template, take a shot at filling it out. Matt?
Absolutely, Mike. Mike, again, for this great webinar today. Before we wrap up, I'll let you know that when you leave the webinar in a few minutes or in several minutes, based on our discussions after with Mike, a course evaluation will pop up in a browser window. What happens, you may see a warning screen from WebEx. We're about to leave WebEx and that they cannot guarantee the content beyond there. Don't worry, but you do have to click the continue button on that warning screen in order to the evaluation form in the browser. So please click that continue button and provide your feedback. We look at it all and we use it to improve our webinars. So now I have several minutes left at the end. We've allotted an hour for this. If you have questions that weren't answered, I see we have some comments we can discuss. Please stick around and we'll be doing that. If you have to go, we understand. But what do we hear that was provided at the end? Thomas had some good comments on there's always coupons at the store. You have to ask. There may be a Sheen. The Millionaire Next Door. Yes, I think that's by local Professor Bill Danko here at SUNY Albany. That is a great book. And
Dave Ramsey also has a couple of good books on spending and saving money.
Yeah. I believe Next Door describes or profiles several successful quote-unquote millionaires and how they did it or how they got there. And most millionaires drive pickup trucks because they have utility, right? They're not driving sport vans, they're driving something that can also be useful, have this, etc.
Can you percentages one more time?
Yes, percentages on the, I believe said the amount of
30%.
Yes.
For your fixed expenses. Approximately another 30% for. I need to find that page. I'm sorry.
Yeah, take your time.
Housing credit, no more than 30% of your budget. Income taxes and insurance, another 30%. Savings, 15%. And that was about 25% for everything else, all of your other living expenses or your what we call flexible expenses here.
And we go that bunch of if we need to.
Yep. Dave, in one of his books, talks about how you can drive a car for free. Well, I remember what he would talk about is even if you lease a car, you have to come up with a down payment. Let's say the down payment is $3,000.
Mhm.
Instead of putting $3,000 on a new car and paying $200 a month for these, $3,000 used car. You drive for a year.
Okay.
Take the $200 a month that you would have spent on the lease and put.
Mhm.
So end of the year, you would have saved another $2,400. Car that you paid $3,000 for about $3,000 again,
Mhm.
because it really hasn't depreciated much.
Right.
And now you buy a $3,000 car. And
Yeah.
And
in 5 years, living for free,
yep,
and you've been upgrading vehicles.
yep. You know, that other car probably drives just as well and will get you there just as well as that car will.
Mhm.
But
No.
still can get you there.
And it can't drive itself, but
You can buy one of those little trees hang from your rearview mirror.
that's
It'll
right.
make it smell like a new car. And they're expensive.
What's your opinion on a debt relief program? Christine asked.
I don't think that's a very good idea. Like any company that's going to charge you a fee to help with your debt is a stay away from them every time. There are organizations that will do it for free,
Mhm.
and you take advantage of that.
Couldn't find ClearPath. We could.
It did a
Take a
search
look.
for, it used to be called Consumer Credit Counseling Service. It's supported by CSEA in New York State. Find a link to it on the one of the sites, and I remember where you'd find it.
Let's take a look.
Yeah,
Credit.
Counseling Service, and then New York.
There we go. It's here from the webinar, probably.
Yeah.
Consumer Credit Counseling Service in Albany. Is
Yep.
that the one?
That's the one.
So moneymanagement.org. You want to search like we did and find the one in your local city, but
Yep. But for this service, it's available for free.
okay, I'll call, and when we go back to the slide.
You know, I will check that. I'm not sure if that's
Okay.
advertisement you clicked on.
So you're looking at I'm sorry,
Service.
my browser. Okay.
At a free service. Google will fool you into clicking what's at the top of your, and it'll actually be paid advertisement.
Do it again.
Yes.
Credit Counseling Service. Okay. So like you said, the first few might be ads. Sometimes they have to tell us that, but other
Yeah. Well, don't actually.
not in Bing.
Non-profit. Buffalo.
You can clear path to the query.
Counseling. Fee. Credit Counseling Service. Try to see your.
You mentioned.
Wisely.
Okay. Well, how about we recommend out the recording of that on the website? Because I believe that one points you right at the actual.
It does.
Okay.
It does.
I can look for that on my machine too. So.
But to pay for a service for debt consolidation.
In the business to make their money, correct?
Yes.
For you, if there are any other questions or comments you had that weren't addressed in the webinar, please let us know. Again, 5, which is nice. We do have time for what I'm using credit wisely.
Other questions or comments?
I don't see any, but okay, keep looking.
Mm-hmm.
So when you leave the WebEx webinar, or when I end it on this end, a warning pops up, warning that you're leaving WebEx because it wants to call up the SNAP surveys page. So just please click the continue button when you warning page, and you should see the SNAP surveys evaluation open in your web browser. Us that the email resources we sent have a list of credit counseling items to choose from. So then you're the original email for the webinar.
Good.
But to pose, simply go to that, click, but instead of joining the webinar, the resource should be at the bottom of that. Again, if you can't find those or you have any questions, I'll put that up here. There we go.
ClearPoint.
Oh, creditcounseling.solutions.org.
That's the one.
All right, let's give that a shot.
All right.
Time.
We do. There you go. Yeah.
And we'll make URL matches here. Oh my, I'm gonna have to put in. Let's do that. .org. ClearPoint Credit. Yes. .org. Okay, I'll copy that for everyone.
Paste it into the.
Uh-huh. So that's what it looks like. Make sure you see this website when you go there. Otherwise, not the one we recommend in our Use Credit webinar. I don't have any more questions or comments. Like I said, you can contact us at any time today. We hope you got the information you were looking for. I'd like to say thanks for joining us, and there are more webinars this semester. Please check the website for those, and just click the continue button on the WebEx warning so that you can provide your feedback via SNAP surveys evaluation. All right, thanks everyone, and we'll see you at the next webinar.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon. Bye.
Bye-bye.